Ever wonder how we went from tree-hugging primates to people binge-watching documentaries about tree-hugging primates? Human evolution isn't just a slow crawl through time. It's a bizarre, fascinating, and sometimes awkward story full of walking upright, inventing tools, and discovering fire without burning everything down. In this video, we're breaking it all down, every stage that led to you being able to scroll this far. No jargon, no fluff, just the real story of how humans became, well, human. Let's rewind about 7 million years and meet the weirdest family reunion in history. Roughly 7 million years ago, in what is now Chad, Africa, a primate popped onto the evolutionary scene that scientists named Sahelanthropus chadensis. Bit of a mouthful, right? Let's call him Chad. Chad was probably one of the earliest members of our family tree. Not quite ape, not quite human, but definitely interesting. Now, Chad had a few things going for him. For one, his skull suggests he could walk upright. That's a big deal. Walking on two legs frees up the hands for more exciting things, like carrying food or eventually inventing smartphones. But don't get carried away. Chad wasn't writing poetry or roasting mammoths. He had a small brain, about the size of a modern chimp's. Still, it was a start. A toe in the Homo sapiens pool, if you will. We don't know if Sahelanthropus had language or tools, but he may have been the first to awkwardly shuffle across the African savanna on 2 feet. It's hard to know exactly what Chad's day-to-day looked like, but his fossilized skull tells us this. Evolution had officially started poking around with the idea of upright walking. And once nature tries something interesting, it usually doesn't stop there. Next up, a familiar face with a lot more legwork, Australopithecus afarensis. Fast forward to about 3.9 to 3 million years ago and say hello to Australopithecus afarensis. Or as scientists like to call her, Lucy. Yes, she's named after the Beatles song. No, she didn't invent music, but she might have been the first to boogie upright. Lucy and her kind lived in what's now East Africa, places like Ethiopia and Tanzania. She stood about 3 to 4 feet tall, had long arms, a small brain, and a very impressive ability to walk on 2 legs. That's right, bipedalism wasn't a one-time experiment. Evolution liked the vibe, and Lucy ran, walked awkwardly, with it. But here's the plot twist. While she walked like a human, she still climbed like a champ. Her curved fingers and strong arms suggest she spent a fair amount of time in trees. So, picture it. An early hominin strutting across the plains 1 minute and clambering up trees the next. Basically, the original cross-trainer. Lucy didn't make tools, as far as we know, but her anatomy gives us the first real glimpse of the human body plan. Hips, knees, and feet evolving to support life on the ground. And while her brain wasn't much bigger than a chimp's, her species thrived for over 1 million years. That's not bad for someone with no fire, no words, and no TikTok. Why does Lucy matter? Because she proves evolution isn't linear, it's experimental, messy. She's the bridge between fully tree-bound primates and landwalkers like us. Without her, the whole standing up and making eye contact thing might have never caught on. Next up, we meet the handy one. Literally. It's Homo habilis, and this guy figured out that banging rocks together could actually get you dinner. Roughly 2.4 to 1.4 million years ago, evolution handed out its first DIY toolkit. Enter Homo habilis, also known as handyman. And no, he didn't fix your leaky roof, but he was the first hominin to show serious talent for making tools and using them. Now, don't picture a sleek toolbox. Think more, banging 2 rocks together until one sort of sharpens. These early stone tools, called Oldowan tools, were basically chipped rocks used for slicing meat, cracking bones, or maybe just showing off to other Homo habilis. Check out my rock edge, Karen. But the tools weren't the only upgrade. Homo habilis had a bigger brain, about 600 to 700 cubic centimeters, nearly double that of Lucy. That doesn't mean he was writing novels, but it does suggest better problem solving, communication, and possibly a bit of planning ahead. You know, thinking like, hey, maybe I save this sharp rock for later instead of licking it. He wasn't tall, maybe around 4 feet, but Homo habilis was moving away from tree-dwelling life. His body was built more for walking than swinging through branches. He may have even lived in small social groups, forming bonds around shared meals and mutual survival, which sounds familiar, doesn't it? Yeah. The most important thing about Homo habilis: he marks the beginning of the Homo genus, the family name we still carry. This guy is on the same family tree branch as us, and his tool-making brain started shaping the world in ways no other species had before. Coming up next, a global traveler, fire starter, and full-time overachiever, Homo erectus. He didn't just survive, he wandered the earth with purpose. Say hello to Homo erectus, the first hominin who looked kind of human. Not mistaken for your cousin human, but definitely closer than anyone before. Around 1.9 million to 110,000 years ago, Homo erectus burst onto the scene with 2 major upgrades: long legs and an even longer travel itinerary. This guy was built to move. He left Africa, yes, left, and spread across Asia and parts of Europe. If evolution were a road trip, Homo erectus packed the snacks, mapped the route, and probably argued over directions. Fossils have been found as far as Indonesia and China. This was no homebody, but travel wasn't his only talent. Homo erectus is widely believed to be the first to control fire. Not just stumble across a lucky lightning strike, but actually maintain it, build campfires, cook meat, and maybe keep predators and awkward dinner conversations at bay. Cooking, by the way, may have helped shrink the jaw and boost the brain. Science, delicious and effective. Speaking of brains, Homo erectus had a pretty big one, around 900 to 1100 cubic centimeters. Still not modern human size, but getting impressively close. His tools got fancier too, more shaped, more specific, more, hey, I planned this. These are called Herculean tools. Think hand axes, not just random rock shards. He was also taller, up to 6 feet, and more muscular. Basically, a lean, mean, prehistoric walking machine, and he stuck around a long time, over 1.5 million years. That's not just success, that's dynasty. Why does Homo erectus matter? Because he proved humans could adapt, travel, and innovate far beyond one environment. He was the prototype for global living, but the blueprint keeps improving. Next up, the mysterious, big-brained middle child of human evolution, Homo heidelbergensis. About 700,000 to 200,000 years ago, evolution hit the upgrade all button. Homo heidelbergensis enters the chat, taller, smarter, and more complex than any ancestor before him. Think of this species as the missing link between Homo erectus and, well, us, plus Neanderthals, and possibly Denisovans. He's kind of the group project everyone branched off from. Standing around 5'9" to 6 feet tall with a solid build, Homo heidelbergensis had a brain nearly as big as ours, about 1,200 to 1,300 cubic centimeters. That's a lot of cranial real estate, and it wasn't wasted. These folks weren't just surviving. They were thinking, organizing, and likely communicating in more complex ways. They were also builders. Archaeological finds suggest they may have been the first to construct simple shelters, actual structures, not just hiding under a bush. That's right, we finally get walls, and maybe a roof. Evolution is basically HGTV at this point, but perhaps their most impressive skill, organized hunting. Homo heidelbergensis hunted big game, like mammoths and rhinos. Not solo, mind you. These hunts required planning, teamwork, and probably some very animated gestures. They used wooden spears, and they weren't just chucking them randomly. There was strategy involved. Why does this stage matter? Because Homo heidelbergensis is the likely common ancestor of both Neanderthals and modern humans. He's the evolutionary fork in the road where things start getting really interesting, and a little crowded. His legacy is immense: teamwork, tools, travel, and shelter. He didn't invent culture, but he definitely gave it the scaffolding. Coming up next, we visit our cold weather cousins with a misunderstood reputation, Homo neanderthalensis. Spoiler, they weren't as brutish as history makes them sound. Somewhere around 400,000 to 40,000 years ago, Homo neanderthalensis, aka Neanderthals, were thriving across Europe and parts of Western Asia. And before you picture a club-wielding caveman grunting at shadows, hold that thought. These guys were smart, sensitive, and possibly better at surviving cold weather than we are. Neanderthals had big brains, sometimes even bigger than Homo sapiens. But their bodies? Stocky, strong, and built for Ice Age living. Think barrel chests, thick bones, and the kind of strength that could probably bench press a mammoth haunch. Not that they would, but still, respect. For a long time, they got painted as the dumber sibling, but new evidence says otherwise. Neanderthals made sophisticated tools, controlled fire, hunted in groups, and even made art. Yes, actual symbolic cave art. That suggests imagination, maybe even culture. And get this, they buried their dead. Not just dropped them in a ditch, but laid them to rest with care. That's a huge evolutionary marker. It means they probably had emotions, rituals, maybe even a concept of death. In other words, they weren't so different from us. Also, we literally have Neanderthal DNA. When modern humans migrated into Europe, we didn't just push Neanderthals aside. We mingled. A lot. If you've got European or Asian ancestry, chances are you've got a little Neanderthal in you. So maybe rethink those dumb caveman jokes. Eventually, they disappeared, likely due to climate shifts, disease, or competition with Homo sapiens. But their legacy lives on, in our genes, our tools, and even our family tree. Next up, us. The current chapter in evolution's long, weird book, Homo sapiens. Spoiler, we're complicated. Roughly 300,000 years ago, Homo sapiens showed up in Africa. And while we may think of ourselves as the ultimate product of evolution, spoiler alert, we're just the current draft. But wow, what a draft. Our brains are massive compared to our body size, about 1,300 to 1,400 cubic centimeters, and wired for abstract thought, language, planning, and culture. We're not just surviving anymore, we're storytelling, philosophizing, doom-scrolling, very advanced stuff. Homo sapiens developed symbolic language, complex tools, and actual art. We're talking cave paintings, musical instruments, jewelry, things that suggest not just intelligence, but imagination. Around 70,000 years ago, something clicked. Scientists call it the cognitive revolution. We started organizing in larger groups, creating myths, sharing beliefs, and building social systems. And then, we spread everywhere. Africa, Europe, Asia, Australia, eventually the Americas. We crossed ice bridges, built boats, even domesticated wolves into dogs. No offense to earlier hominins, but we basically took over the planet. Of course, with great intelligence comes a lot of chaos. We built cities, invented money, created agriculture, and accidentally started traffic jams and existential crises. Our success is kind of a double-edged stone tool. But here's the thing. Homo sapiens aren't just builders, or hunters, or thinkers. We're rememberers. We preserve stories, pass down wisdom, and ask questions about where we came from, which is why you're watching this video in the first place. So here we are, sitting atop millions of years of trial and error, bipedal breakthroughs, and brainy upgrades. We're the current chapter, not the final one. What comes next? Well, if history's taught us anything, evolution never stops tinkering. And there you have it, millions of years of human evolution in just a few minutes. From awkward upright walkers to tool makers, fire tamers, and space launchers, we've come a long way. Kinda weird, kinda brilliant, super messy. If you learned something new, give this video a thumbs up. If your brain feels slightly more evolved now, go ahead and subscribe. And if you still can't believe you share DNA with Neanderthals, drop a brain emoji in the comments. Thanks for watching. Stay curious, stay weird, and remember, evolution isn't over. You're part of the story too.